So I hope you have access to this sutta. The sutta is Yoga Sutta. Yoga in Pali means union. So it can be translated in various ways. Bhikkhu Bodhi, which is the translator we're looking at, his translation has it as bonds. You can also think of it as in yoking, like we yoke oxen to the plough. The idea being, therefore, that we're talking about some form of enslavement, bondage, and that's the basis of this sutta. So I shall begin, and then I shall start asking you questions. Bhikkhus. So a bhikkhu is a Buddhist monk. Bhikkhus, there are these four bonds. What four? The bond of sensuality, the bond of existence, the bond of views, and the bond of ignorance. So the Buddha here is, with this sutta you'll notice there's no location, it's not located anywhere. We're not told what gave rise to this particular discourse. We're just given the sheer skeleton, the nuts and bolts of what the Buddha wanted to talk about. And you'll notice how repetitive this is. You'll notice how he uses this technique of reeling around the subject. First of all, he lets us know what we're actually dealing with in the most simple terms, and then he will establish each of these four bonds and explains them as they go along. Okay, so, and what, bhikkhus, is the bond of sensuality? Here, someone does not understand as they really are the origin and the passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in regard to sensual pleasures. When one does not understand these things as they really are, then sensual lust, sensual delight, sensual affection, sensual infatuation, sensual thirst, sensual passion, sensual attachment, and sensual craving lie deep within one in regard to sensual pleasures. This is called the bond of sensuality. So the enslavement by sensuality. So now we need to ask certain questions because these themes come up again and again throughout the discourse. What do we mean by the origin and the passing away of sensuality? That's the first question. So the first question really is, what do we mean by sensuality? That's the very first question. What is sensuality? Peter,
Can we just? Oh,
if you just wait for me to ask you to unmute. Peter Andrews.
So I don't know if he's talking to like people who haven't gone through the training, but is he talking about
Talking to everyone.
He's talking to everyone. So he's on about sensuality, feelings that arise on sense contacts.
No.
Or the belief in objects there, or
No, you're leaping too far ahead.
oh, okay.
What is sensuality?
The five senses.
Okay, better.
In the mind. Yeah.
Get onto the sixth sense, but we're talking about sight seen through the eyes, sounds heard through the ears. We're talking about smells smelt through the nose, tactile sensations via the body, and tastes via the tongue. That's what we're talking about. Okay. Good. Okay. So what is the origin and the passing away? What does he mean by this? Why is this is the first thing in the list that he mentions?
He means that they don't see the arising and passing of the five senses. sensuality.
Okay, I'm going to need a little bit more detail on that. Thanks, Peter. Can anyone else? What is the origin? What is the origin? So essentially what we're asking is, what is the origin of sensory contact? Mark.
He's talking about conditions, conditionality,
Specifically?
Materiality, the aggregate of materiality.
No, we're talking about a sense contact. What is the origin of a sense contact? Okay, we've got a few more people asking. Mark, you want to just go for it?
The origin of a sense contact.
Yes.
Um,
You said the word conditions before.
yeah.
Okay, so what conditions are necessary for there to be sense contact? What conditions are there necessary for there to be a sight?
Oh, okay. So bases, sense bases,
Thank you.
like a working eye,
Yes.
consciousness,
Seeing.
seeing, the object.
Excellent. There have to be those three things. I know it's getting very technical very, very quickly, but you have to understand that. And it's the failure to understand that that's the whole problem with sensuality and attachment to sensuality, right? So the origin of sense contact, a working sense, is the coming together of the sensory object, the base, and the consciousness that knows the object. So in terms of seeing, there is shape and color, there is the working sensitivity of the eye, and there is knowing of that shape and color, which is seeing. Okay, so in regards to what we're talking about this evening, there has to be that understanding that sense contact is originated through conditions and immediately passes away. This is why we practice meditation, in order to see this, right? We have to understand it from the very beginning. We have to understand, as they really are, the origin and the passing away of sensory contacts. Okay. Now, I'm sure everyone will be able to list what is the gratification in sensory contacts. Why do people practice indulging the senses? What is to be gained from it? Jim, hello. You need to unmute.
Yeah, because they're pleasant. If it's a visual object, it's something nice to look at. If it's an oral object from the ear, it's nice music or some pleasant sound, and we like it, so we try to make it happen again and again and again, and we kind of get stuck on it sometimes.
Okay, but we don't want to leap ahead, but that's absolutely right. There's also aversion to undesirable sense experience too, but essentially the gratification of the senses is in the pleasure that it brings, which is what Peter alluded to as well. Okay, so what's the danger in sensuality? Is there a danger in sensuality? Why is the Buddha? Yasmin, hello.
It's a danger that we don't understand that those pleasant feelings are impermanent.
Exactly. What does the failure to recognize the impermanence of, sorry, getting tangled up with words. Yes, so that, thinking about it, there is another aspect of gratification that I really have to mention. But yeah, it's the failure to recognize that the sense contacts themselves are impermanent. What is the implication if somebody doesn't recognize that, Yasmin?
If somebody doesn't recognize the impermanence, well, it's very painful.
Yeah, the loss is painful. The inability to gain that sensory delight is painful. And ignoring the fact that it's an entirely transient experience causes somebody to want it again. So they ignore the fact that every time they get a hit or whatever it is, it's going to be impermanent. And therefore they will always lose the pleasure gained from it. Yeah. The other aspect of gratification that I think really does need to be brought out is, and I think this is the major reason why we try to gain satisfaction through the senses. It's not so much the pleasure that's gained, it's the pleasure of the absence of the restlessness of the desire itself, okay? Which is a fundamental aspect. Could everyone make sure you're muted, please? Annie, Julia, Mandy? Thanks. Julia, yeah. So the real pleasure isn't really in obtaining the sensory delight so much as it is in the non-restlessness, the non-desire which is experienced. So feeling sated means you temporarily don't feel the pain of the restlessness and the desire, but of course we know that it only reinforces the tendency towards desire. So it is like drinking salty water in that regard. So what is the escape in regard to sensual pleasures? Peter? Not Peter, David.
The escape is to understand the true nature of experiences being transient, unsatisfactory, and non-self.
Okay, so we have to gain a direct comprehension. We have to transform our perception of sense contacts to be able to recognize that they are indeed unsatisfactory, that whatever pleasure is derived from them is illusory, because it always passes away again. Okay. And when one does not understand these things as they really are, then sensual lust, sensual delight, sensual affection, etc., arise. And so, of course, we've heard in the news over the weekend that a famous American actor had died, and it transpires that I think he said himself that he was an alcoholic by the time he was 14. So, I mean, what chance have you got? You know, and that is the real, genuine danger in chasing sensuality as a way of overcoming suffering. I mean, that's essentially what it is, isn't it? It's always the attempt to overcome suffering through indulging the senses. Okay, I'm just concerned about time, so I think we should move on to the next paragraph. Such are the bond of sensuality. Oh, sorry, I've gone too far. Such is the bond of sensuality. And how is their bond of existence? Here, someone does not understand as they really are the origin and the passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in regard to states of existence. When one does not understand these things as they really are, then lust for existence, delight in existence, affection for existence, infatuation with existence, thirst for existence, passion for existence, attachment to existence, and craving for existence lie deep within one in regard to states of existence. This is called the bond of existence. Now, this is a little bit tangly. What do we mean by what Bhikkhu Bodhi is translating as existence here? Has anyone done a little bit of research? Jim? You need to unmute, please.
Always. I understood it to mean a state of being. So identifying as, I don't know, a human or a professional or a runner or any kind of idea about who you are at, and believing that there's some sort of permanence to it.
Okay, excellent. Mark, have you got anything to add in addition to that?
I was going to say roughly that, but kind of yeah, self. Yeah. In the same sense. Yeah.
Okay. Also, Ellen. Hello, Ellen.
Hello. As I read this sutta, I was reflecting on the relationship between these four things and the fetters, and whether it might be some version of a fetter, which made me think of rebirth, like the form or the formlessness, material existence or immaterial grasping for that kind of an existence. But okay, it's very different than what the other guy said.
Well, it doesn't mean that you're wrong and they're right. In fact, you're all right. You're all right, and you're all right. It can mean all those things. So essentially what Jim said is it's like, I like Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation as states of existence, because a state of existence can really be anything. It can be you lying in a hospital bed in the past. It can be you imagining jumping on your bike and going for a cycle in the future. It can be wanting to be a professional, wanting to be a doctor. It's like it is literally any state of existence that you can possibly imagine. What is it when we create these solid fixed ideas of existence? What are we not acknowledging? So coming back to the sutta, here someone does not understand as they really are the origin and the passing away. Sally King, hello.
Is it that you're not realizing that those things don't last? So whatever you try and label yourself as in that moment, or the thought that you had about a memory of how you used to be or how you want to be, that all those things are never going to stay the same, because you're never the same in any one moment.
Brilliant. Well, yes, very well. Nothing remains the same in any one moment. So it's all based on the idea that there is this solid, enduring, unchanging core to life. Now, by that, I don't mean, we know that things change. We know that we get older. We know that, you change jobs and so forth. What I'm talking about here is what we see in meditation, which is every component part of any experience is entirely transient. So the idea that there is some set state of existence anywhere in anything is actually illusory. So the failure to recognize the true nature of reality causes us to create these fixed ideas about ourselves existing in this permanently existing world. And even if it's not, it doesn't limit itself to just states of being, states of existence in this limited life that we're experiencing at the moment. It does include the whole thing about rebirth as well, and the fact that it is craving. And what is it craving for? It's craving for sensual delights. It's craving for becoming the doctor, becoming the great golfer, becoming, free, whatever it might be, is enslavement to the wheel of rebirth. So it's everything. It's that resentment about that you hold about that person from 1992. That resentment is, it's over here. That resentment is held up as being a permanently existing state of existence that happened in the past. So we retain this sense of its realness, of its solidity, and so we still get upset by it, and we still hold on to a resentment. So it's all forms of existence at any level that you can imagine. Okay, so what's the gratification in that? Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like fantasy, sort of daydreaming. Is I'm going to be a photographer. I'm going to be about self and how people see you, and it's all story and briefly it just feels like, oh yeah, really nice ego boost.
Yes, yeah, and I will be happy when I'll be happy when I've got that permanent state of existence in the future. I will be permanently happy when, so it includes that. I mean, I've even had meditators saying, that they're looking forward to their next rebirth when they'll really try hard with the meditation. It's like, okay, you're not going to try hard now. You'll try hard then. Peter da Costa, hello.
Hello. It's all about reinforcing one's sense of identity. I really do exist after all, and that means I can do all the things I want to do. It's banishing doubt about my existence. How about that? Yeah,
very, very good. Very good indeed. So yeah, reinforcing the central conceit, the central delusion of my separateness from the rest of existence. Very good indeed. Okay. So we've got sensuality, we've got the bond of existence. When one does not understand these things as they really are, then lust for existence, delight in existence, affection for existence, infatuation with existence, thirst for existence, passion for existence, attachment to existence, and craving for existence lie deep within one in regard to states of existence. This is called the bond of existence. And I know that this is very repetitive, but it is an oral tradition. So the Buddha will be going over this again and again and again to instill it in the minds of his students. He then goes on, such are the bonds of sensuality and the bond of existence. And how is there the bond of views? Here, someone does not understand as they really are the origin and passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in regard to views. When one does not understand these things as they really are, then lust for views, delight in views, affection for views, infatuation with views, thirst for views, passion for views, attachment to views, and craving for views lie deep within one in regard to views. This is called the bond of views. So where do views come from? I mean, it's right in our, you only have to turn on the TV for it to be right in our faces at the moment, watching a bit of news. Everyone knows exactly what's going on and what the solution is. Dave.
Yeah, I think our views come from our conditioning, from society and from our parents, and from what we read and listen to and pay attention to.
Okay, in part, very good. In part, Mandy. Hello.
Hi. Yes, is it also that kind of the belief in our thinking? So taking thinking for being consistent, steady.
So the views are giving us a sense of solidity, a sense of structure, a sense of knowing what's going on. Yeah. Okay.
As fixed thing, fixed something, fixed idea, something that exists.
Okay, really good. Okay. Let's see who else is up there. I'll go in order. Mark.
Reinforcing the view of self.
Yeah.
Placing a value judgment in response to conditions. So it's kind of saying this is right, this is wrong, and this is through expressing it through these views, I define the self, blah blah blah.
Right. So in the same case as Peter was talking about with existence, there is the need to reinforce the sense of myself as a separate actor in the world, and therefore we're constantly having to define and redefine ourselves in relation to the external world, which we do via views, because we have to have some structure. We have to be able to look out on the world and to some extent understand it. Okay, who was next? Sally.
I don't know. I keep thinking of this phrase, I think, therefore I am.
Exactly.
So I'm thought, so it must be me. So I'm going to cling on to it. But actually, you don't have to think like that, maybe.
Well, I think the purpose of the teaching and the meditation is to be able to see through it.
Yeah.
Not to dispense with views entirely, but we do want to dispense with attachment to them. And that can only come from understanding the world as it really is. If you understand the world as it really is, you don't need to believe it to be a certain way. You comprehend it, and therefore you don't have an attachment to the belief. Yasmin.
Views about trying to give us some sort of order and certainty out of chaos and ambiguity.
Okay. Beautifully put. Exactly that. Apparent chaos and ambiguity. Because when we meditate, we actually see that there is this wonderful process of conditioned and conditioning phenomena going on, creating this wonderful phantasmagoria we call being alive. And there we recognize this underlying perfect order that's actually going on. So it's only an apparent chaos. But when people are blinded by their views, they're not able to, well, I'm moving ahead a bit quickly, but they're unable to see the true nature of life. They only see the reflection of their views, which we can come on to. The next question is, okay, so what is the gratification in views? Well, we've really kind of covered it, haven't we? There's this gratification of knowing that I'm in the know. There's a sense of being able to show your virtue and your value externally, therefore reinforcing your sense of self through that. You get to reinforce this idea of yourself. You do actually get to, you are in some senses able to control the world because of the way that you view it. Okay, so there's a lot of gratification in views. What's the danger? As if we haven't got any evidence of that in the world at the moment. What is the problem with views, Lucy?
Is it that they're all wrong, essentially?
Well, I mean, the Buddha talks about there being wrong views, right views, and then going beyond view altogether. So, Buddhists would argue that the view of action and result and the view that there's more than one life is a right view, but it is a view. So what might be the fundamental flaw in views?
Me still? Or...
Yeah, Lucy, if you care to, or I can ask somebody else. But
is it not? It's not an accurate description of. No.
Even accurate descriptions of the world have a tendency, and so we need to get at what that tendency is.
Is it to conceptualize?
Well, if you maintain that life is one way, life will demonstrate to you that it can also be the opposite way too. So if I illustrate it with a really stupid view, only the color blue is acceptable, all other colors are inferior, what am I immediately going to be brought up against? The fact that there are other colors. So I'll always be unhappy because for whatever view you hold, whatever you delineate as being this is truth, this is the way things are, you are dividing life between what you consider to be true and right with everything else, because life is whole and it doesn't actually have any division within it. So you're creating this artificial division which must engender conflict. So whatever else is you believe in that moment, you delineate everything that it's not. So whatever view you hold, even if you hold a right view, actions have results. I know in my experience that to be true. There will be people who disagree with me. Therefore, there is inevitably conflict, fundamentally so. And we see that playing out in the world all the time. That's why is there so much conflict in the world? Oh, it's because people have views and they hold tenaciously to those views. So there is a gratification in views. There's a danger in views. What's the escape from views? Kind of actually said it already. Peter.
The escape from views is to realize that the views are running. Once they become objects, they cease to manifest the subject. Sort of things. Any view.
What are you going to replace a view with, though?
Any view at all is
because we've discussed already that we need views in order to make sense of the world. So if you're going to remove views, what's the only thing that can replace it?
Bare attention.
What will bare attention give you?
It'll give you all the information you need to duck out of the way of a bus that's coming at you.
Well, I mean, in regard to views, we've said that there are wrong views that simply do not accord with the way life works. There are right views that do accord with the way life works, but they're still views because and they're still dangerous because they divide. And so I'm asking, well, okay, so if you're going to remove views, what are views going to be replaced with? Birgit.
Is it just about being aware that views are not as sort of fixed and solid as, or should not be held as fixed and solid, but that maybe they can be useful at times?
How do we find out what if we remove views or attachment to views or using views to solidify existence and our place in it, we need something to replace it because we need to make sense of the world, right? So what's the one thing we haven't mentioned? Mandy.
Are you saying, Paul, that it's then about observing what is there and staying open-minded?
What does observing what is actual, so not a view, what does observing what is actual, what does it give you?
Yes, so the observing the true existence in things and the things that.
Oh, did we say truth? Did truth get a mention? It is exactly that. Like, so in all of this, everything that we're talking about, views are not based on truth. They're based on ignoring, and the Buddha talks about this a little later on. As we come on to the fourth, we ought to really get on to the fourth one. But essentially what the Buddha is saying is that views come out of ignoring the true nature of reality. And this is why mindful noting of what's taking place in our experience is so important. It's so important with regards to sensuality. It's so important with regard to states of existence. And it's so important with regard to views. So if you are actually looking at life as it is presenting itself to you moment by moment, free from any bias of attachment to views, you are able to see the truth of the matter. The truth is things arise and pass away due to conditions. The truth is they're transient, they're unsatisfactory, they're ungraspable, and they're not self. So we're replacing views and beliefs about things with the direct apprehension and comprehension of the way things really are. That is the purpose of the Buddha's teaching. Okay, so we do really need to crack on because of my poor internet connection earlier. Let's see where have we got to. Such are the bond of sensuality, the bond of existence, and the bond of views. And how is there the bond of ignorance? Here, someone does not understand as they really are the origin and passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in regard to the 6 bases for contact. When one does not understand these things as they really are, then ignorance and unknowing lie deep within one with regard to the 6 bases for contact. This is called the bond of ignorance. Such are the bond of sensuality, the bond of existence, the bond of views, and the bond of ignorance. Can we see the change here? Can we see that what the Buddha is saying? What are the 6 bases for contact? We have 6 senses, 5 physical senses, and mind is taken to be the 6th sense. So you have these 6 sensory fields. Each field is comprised of, as we spoke of at the beginning, the sense object, the sense base, and the sense consciousness. The coming together of those 3 is sense contact. And arising upon sense contacts are feelings and perceptions, and arriving upon those are craving. And the Buddha is saying it is the failure to recognize the true nature, the origin and passing away of these 6 types of sensory contact, not seeing the gratification, the danger and the escape in regard to them, that wrap us up and keep us bound to ignorance. And it's out of that ignorance that come views, out of that ignorance comes states of existence, and out of that ignorance comes sensuality. Yeah, so ignorance, the bond of ignorance leads to the bond of the other 3. Which is why I said at the beginning, and why I said it before the meditation, this is why mindful noting is so important. Right? So it's the ignoring of these 6 sensory fields, these 6 types of contact, that is the cause of bondage to the world. Okay. One is fettered by bad, unwholesome states that are defiling, conducive to renewed existence, troublesome, ripening in suffering, leading to future birth, old age, and death. Therefore, one is said to be not secure from bondage. These are the 4 bonds. Okay. Based on what we've looked at so far, has anyone got any questions or need any clarification? Okay. Oh, Sally. Hello.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head at the end with the ignoring, because when I was reading through it and trying to make sense of it myself, it felt like the first 3 were separate, but the ignoring was underpinning all the others.
Exactly
So
that.
what you said really sort of helped me realise that I did understand it. Hooray!
Yes. This is the thing. I know it's tangly language. It's the Pali Canon. This is 2,500 years old, this information that we're being given. No wonder it's difficult to, and it's being translated. And it's being translated through the translator's own biases, and we can still make sense of it. And if you're a practicing meditator, you will make sense of it, because it won't be, this isn't an intellectual exercise. Essentially, this is just getting you back to practicing mindfully and mindfully noting, but it's really helpful to have this information. Okay. All right. There are bhikkhus these 4 severances of bonds. So breaking the bonds. What for? The severance of the bond of sensuality, the severance of the bond of existence, the severance of the bond of views, the severance of the bond of ignorance. Now, essentially, we have answered all this, but and what Bhikkhus is the severance of the bond of sensuality. Here, someone understands as they really are, the origin and passing away, the gratification, the danger, etc. When one understands these things as they really are, then sensual lust, sensual delight, etc., 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 do not lie within one in regard to sensual pleasures. So this is called the severance of the bond of sensuality. So if you understand, note the word, it's like if you understand, not if you get calm, yeah, not if you get calm, not if you go out and protest. When somebody understands as they really are the coming and going of sensory contacts, essentially, then you do not fall into the trap of becoming enslaved to sensuality. It doesn't mean that you can't enjoy life. It means you're not enslaved by it. That's the difference. So such is the severance of the bond of sensuality. How is there the severance of the bond of existence? Here someone understands as they really are the origin and passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in regard to states of existence. So it's understanding not just the origin and passing away of things, it is understanding the gratification that you get from it, it's understanding the inherent danger in it, and it's understanding the escape from it through the mindful investigation and comprehension of those states. So it's not saying there is no gratification in states of existence. It's not saying that it isn't worthwhile getting some exams under your belt so you can get a better job. It's not saying that. It's saying, do you see the danger though in it? Do you see the danger in not understanding it? Do you not see the danger in its limitations, and that it will never give you that complete happiness that you want? And therefore you undertake a path to escape from the attachment to it, the delight in it, the affection, the infatuation with it, the thirst for it. It doesn't, so it's not life denying. It's saying, can you see through it? Can you see the illusion for what it is? You still get to play, but you don't have to be attached to it, and you don't have to be enslaved by it. Okay. Such are the severance of the bond of sensuality and the severance of the bond of existence. And how is there the severance of the bond of views? Here someone understands as they really are, the origin and the passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in regard to views. So if you understand that views help to orientate you in the world, and that they can be very, very useful, but you also understand the danger in becoming attached to views and regarding views as truth, when in fact they're not truth, they're just a way of looking at, a particular way of looking at life, then you can effect the escape from them through the practice of mindful investigation of the 6 sensory fields and sensory contacts. So it's not saying that views are all bad. It's not saying that you should just sort of wander around without knowing what's going on around you, but we can all see the inherent danger in attachment to views with what's going on in the world at the moment. There is an escape, and the escape is through generating insight, which shows you the truth. And that's what mindful investigation of states is. Okay. Such as the severance of the bond of sensuality, the severance of the bond of existence, and the severance of the bond of views. And how is there the severance of the bond of ignorance? Here someone understands as they really are the origin and passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in regard to the 6 bases for contact. Now here's a subtle point. What do we regard to be the escape in regard to the 6 bases for contact? Sarah? You're not unmuted. You need to unmute, Sarah. Well, you are unmuted, but we can't hear you. So maybe your speakers are not on. Just wave. Do it in sign language. Anybody else would like to? Peter.
The escape is the complete perfection it's the perfect clarity of the problem of ignorance.
It is Peter, it is the realization of the illusory nature of all compounded elements. So it is seeing the entirely unsatisfactory nature of all sensory contacts, including mind as the sixth sense, leads to the turning away, the renunciation of all sensory contacts. But again, it's the same thing. It's seeing the limitation of them and seeing that there is indeed something beyond them. So I'm just agreeing with you. I'm just reformulating it. But essentially, it is realizing Nibbana, which is the beyond of all division. So even sensory contacts are divisive.
Yes. Yeah, yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Good. Excellent. So so when one understands these things as they really are, then ignorance and unknowing do not lie within one in regard to the six senses, six bases for contact. This is called the severance of the bond of ignorance. Such are the severance of the bond of sensuality, the severance of the bond of existence, the severance of the bond of views, and the severance of the bond of ignorance. One is detached from bad, unwholesome states that are defiling, conducive to renewed existence, troublesome, ripening in suffering, leading to future birth, old age, and death. Therefore, one is said to be secure from bondage. These are the four severances of bonds. So the conclusion of the path is having transcended all attachment to sensuality, having transcended all sense of attachment to existence, to views, and having overcome all confusion and ignorance concerning the nature of sensory contacts whatsoever, the mind alights on that which neither arises nor passes away. So in contradistinction to everything that we talked about, there is the realization of that which neither arises nor passes away, which is freedom from all bondage. Right? The entire purpose of the training is to get us to see that that is true, that Third Noble Truth, Nibbana, is real. That is the conclusion of the path. Okay, so Buddha concludes with this verse: fettered by the bond of sensuality and the bond of existence, fettered by the bond of views, preceded by ignorance, beings go on in samsara, led on in birth and death. But having entirely understood sense pleasures and the bond of existence, having uprooted the bond of views and dissolved ignorance, the sages have severed all bonds. They have gone beyond bondage. I mean, it was ridiculous to suppose that we could get this done in an hour. I chose it. Has anyone got any questions based on that? I know we've had to rush it a little bit because I was late getting my internet connection sorted out. Peter.
What, as to why you chose this, what did you think we needed?
I think especially with regard to views, given what's been going on in the world recently, and to really bring out that views are originated in ignorance, that so many people associate their views with truth, but they're actually just a particular point of view. They're just a particular way of looking at sensory phenomena. And that they give a lie, they tell a lie, they give a sense of solidity to life, a kind of finiteness, a kind of, they give undue structure to life. They give a sense of unchangingness. And therefore, to change things requires us to rise up and to revolt. But it's all based in ignorance, irrespective of what side you're on. So it is the belief that when you have this intransigent problem, this unchanging problem, that we need to resolve it. We need to find a solution. But when you look with insight, you realize that the attempt to resolve it is what is holding the problem in being. And that if you cease to attempt to resolve it, it gives the problem a chance to dissolve, because there really isn't a problem there to begin with. It's only perpetuated by the ignorant mind. And in ignorance, then people go through all these machinations, this enslavement that causes them to commit the most heinous crimes against one another. That's what prompted it.
Yeah, yes. Not knowing that you're ignorant.
Well, there's the problem. There are the Buddha said there are those that do not know that they do not know. Mark.
Yeah, I was going to ask about if this was given as presumably as a kind of like an encouragement to practice, right? To by the Buddha to develop insight, to note, to meditate and to note. And I'm just curious as to, I don't know if this particular sutta is a set where he talks about other elements around feelings, for example, or the arising and passing of feelings and perceptions and the passing away of consciousness and so forth. It just I don't know really. I guess when towards the end when you were kind of emphasizing this is why it's so important to mindfully note with a choiceless awareness, and essentially it's repeating the same message, the same lesson, right, that we've heard and possibly ignore many times. Why he hasn't mentioned feelings, because that often feels like the kind of that's where the painful stuff comes in, and I guess maybe that it's dealt with in a different sutta, or I don't know. Just curious, really.
In this translation, it is mentioned in the paragraph on sensuality, but only at the end.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Well, the danger and the escape in regard to sensual pleasures. So really, sensuality, you can gloss it and say that it's attachment to sensual pleasure, but it's also attachment to displeasure. Also, it is the aversion to painful feelings, which is as productive of volitional activity, ignorant volitional activity, as pleasant feelings.
Yeah, right. So,
but it's based. I think it's based on it's based on the premise. People don't understand that it's actually the release from restlessness that drives their desire for sensual indulgence,
like a diversion.
Well, I mean, you experience a temporary nibbana. You experience the cessation of suffering, because what is the cessation of suffering? It's the absence of craving. So you experience the absence of craving, which is delightful. I can get really into a beautiful piece of music, and there's nothing else but that piece of music. There's no me at that time. There's just the sensory experience, there's no suffering. That's why we do it. That's why we go to the movies. That's why we watch the football. That's why we listen to music. That's why we engage. Because it's not like, because the beautiful thing about the release from bondage to sensuality means you are able to appreciate that you have had the magic all the time. That there is like the deep mystery of sense experience, that you don't actually need it to be amped up. The reason that people feel that they have to amp up and get more and get bigger and get certain types of sensory experience is because they ignore what they've actually got. And the more you actually observe what you've got, and the more remarkable that any of this is happening becomes, you realize that you don't actually require more, better, greater. You don't need to amp up experiences. The experiences in and of itself is what you always wanted. So it's not the destruction of the sensual. It is the total comprehension of it. Yeah, meaning that you no longer need to crave for sensory pleasure. There is so what I like to say is like life, it becomes its own reward, that it doesn't require anything. You know, it is perfect in and of itself. It does not require anything in order to make it so. See what I mean? But I've sort of run away with your thought there. But yeah, so I think you can gloss it into sense pleasures if you like.
Yeah. Cheers, Paul.
Ellen.
In your summing up, would it be fair to say the way I'm taking this away is that it's the second noble truth, that this is a bit of an exposition, or whatever the right word is, about the second noble truth. There's suffering. This is the cause of suffering, and it's just breaking it down into some of these components a bit. And it's got nothing to do with fetters.
Well, no, because it has, because all these terms are really quite interchangeable. But it's like you are fettered if you're infatuated with sensuality. You are thereby fettered. There is a fetter of sensual desire. There is, we call it greed, the fetter of greed. It's like, I want more, I want more, I want more. So absolutely, I mean, yeah, fettered. It's there in the fettered by the bond of sensuality, and the bond of existence fettered by the bond of views, preceded by ignorance. And I think that's the real, what it. We are talking about just ignoring, not knowing, yes, but also not seeing. And so if you turn the attention deliberately to those 6 sensory fields, and you're willing to observe again and again the true nature of what is arising and passing away, then you reach a point where you are no longer fettered by, you are no longer enslaved by sensuality, states of existence, and views. Yeah. You literally do no longer need to crave for life to be different than it is.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, that was an interesting experiment. We can have some time to think about how that went, and whether you got more from that than just having a Q&A, whether I amped it up too much, started with something a little simpler, or whether you feel like it was just too simplistic and we ought to be getting into the deep stuff. But we'll find out. So I think in a couple of weeks' time, we'll do another Q&A, and we can discuss whether we want to do another sutta and what kind of sutta you'd like to do. But at least it's a start. Are there any other thoughts anyone has? Anything you'd like to talk about? Or shall we leave it a day there, because we've gone on a bit late? All right. let's leave it there then. So food for thought, but even, oh no, Mandy, oh, you're just saying goodbye, Mandy, yeah. So even better than food for thought, food for practice. So it's just choosing to go back and observing your sensory experience, sights, sounds, tastes, touches, smells, and mind as the sixth sense, and just being willing to just explore and be curious about sensory experience. Just be curious about it, explore it. Don't make up your mind. Don't have a view about it. Come from a place of no view and just observe what's actually there. That is the way to realize freedom from suffering. It really is. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Paul.
Good.
Thank you, Paul, very much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Paul.
Paul.
That's really
Thank you.
brilliant.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Really, really helpful.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Dave.
Very helpful.
Thank you.
I'm going to go and have a lie down now.
Yeah.
All right. Speak to you again soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.